In 1054, the Greek church, the Greek Orthodox Church, split off from the Catholic Church, and we saw a number of believers split one way or the other way. At that point, the belief that Andrew Wilson holds, Greek Orthodoxy, went that way. And then, of course, in 1517, we had the Protestant Reformation. Why am I bringing these up? I'm bringing them up because that sort of forms the heart of this particular debate that I came upon between Andrew Wilson, who's a Greek Orthodox, and Brandan Robertson, who is a Protestant pastor who is an openly gay pastor. And so they debated on whether LGBTQ is in the church and whether it's biblical to be accepted in the church. And one of the things that I wanted to do in this video was highlight a couple of points and do a little bit of commentary, because I think that it's an important debate. It's something that we've seen in different denominations of Christianity kind of coming in. We see some denominations that are entirely conservative and have been since the outset, like my denomination, the Catholic faith. At the outset, we have been following what God has ordained within the Bible with respect to relationships. Jesus said one man and one woman, a marriage between a man and a woman shall not be broken apart. He very much values marriage. It's extremely valuable to God. And we also go back to Genesis 1:27, where it says one man and one woman. It's the idea that God made us in his image as man and woman. So I want to say hi to Slam RN. It's great to see you. So I'm going to review a couple of parts here. I don't know, Slam, if you've seen this debate, but I listened to the whole thing and then I went back and listened to a portion of it. And then I thought, you know what? I wasn't going to comment on it, but I thought there's a couple of parts that I think are worthy of having comments on them, because it's an unusual debate. And Andrew's kind of an interesting character because he's very outspoken and he's on all kinds of channels and he speaks his mind. And it's kind of refreshing in a way to have someone speak their mind instead of sort of doing what he says, where a lot of people kind of crouch in and don't want to say what they actually believe. And I think we need to see some strong Christians out there. That said, you want to be strong to an extent. You want to be salty to an extent. You want to also be kind. So it's kind of like a difficult balancing act that you have to pull there. So let's listen to a couple of parts of this debate. So basically the bottom line, on one side, you've got Brandan Robertson, who is an openly gay pastor who thinks that we should be very tolerant of people in the community who are LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, transgender, queer. And so you should be that. And so that's the one side of the debate. And it's a tolerant position. It's claiming that the Bible is very tolerant. He claims that that we're getting away from the particular tradition, that tradition. We should start new traditions. He's kind of got us in a moral relativistic environment, saying that we kind of fall with the seas of the environment. So the seas of change, and we kind of go with the flow on the seas of change. That's sort of the idea from Brandan. And so he's got that particular view. And his view obviously goes against what we see in the books of Romans and also, of course, all over the Old Testament with respect to sexual relationships between people in in the same sex. And so God did not say that that is something that he condones. And it's all throughout the Bible. And at one point, I didn't notice that it was in the New Testament. In fact, I had my own little Bible in my mind where I didn't think that was in the New Testament because I hadn't really read the New Testament. This was when I was a more liberal Democrat Christian, kind of wishy-washy Christian. And one of my Baptist conservative Christian friends that I was working with, who now is a dean at another university, he pointed out to me, no, read Romans. It's in the book of Romans. And he said that, God ordained certain kinds of relationships, and one is between one man and one woman, and we're to stay married. That's a sacrament that's extremely important to God. It's the whole building block of society is the family. And I think that Andrew highlighted that in this video. He said, if all of society decided to be LGBTQ, we would not have any families. Families would, of course, necessarily diminish because you can't have kids if you don't have sexual unions between one husband and one wife, or a husband and wife. You have to have heterosexual relationships to be able to maintain a society with children and have more than replacement rate in children. So it's really important. In fact, I would say it's really important to have big families. Now I'm even thinking of that even more than I used to think of that. I always wanted one for myself, but actually now I think that that's a building block of society, is having large families, lots of kids, as many kids as you can. Why not? It's wonderful. So here we go. Let's listen to a little portion of this debate to kind of get a taste for what happened between these two. And so again, this is Andrew Wilson right here.
And a few things just to respond to my opening. He says, do queer people belong in church? They always have been. Yeah, to repent. They're there to repent, and they're there to be treated for the spiritual sickness which afflicts them, called homosexuality. The heart of the gospel is love, liberation, salvation. It has nothing to do with liberation. That's a new doctrine. This came around during Enlightenment principles, as well he knows. He says that it should be inspired by authority, psychology, and science. Psychology, sir, is not scientific. All right, it's not. That is not science. It's not even a soft science. It's the study of the mind. There's no scientific methodology really utilized in psychology at all, except perhaps for data gathering purposes. He says there's no place for a male-female binary. Well, Paul would disagree. He says there's zero moral harm, but we haven't established a harm principle. He says the tradition means condoning slavery under Christian ethics, when it was indeed Christians themselves who were the primary abolitionists of slavery. Openly gay pastors, he says, can serve as ministers. Why? Because he wants to serve as a minister. So with that, I'm actually happy to just kind of yield the rest of my time and dive right into this debate.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to quickly read out a few super chats. For the ones that I'm not reading out, we have to keep them TOS, guys, but I do appreciate the support. Ryan Slater gifted 5 Rattlesnake TV memberships. The Ghost of Pinochet said, queer pastor, more Protestant heresy, LMAO. Also, hello from the Crucible crew. I'm sure, Brandon, you'll get into that during the debate. Nick Brown for $10 said, daddy chill. Ghost of Pinochet for $10 says, yes, the time-honored tradition of man-on-man buggery. Yes, we should totally replace the centering of the nuclear family and its formation for this instead. Brandon, do you have a response to that quickly?
I think it's not an either or in my perspective. So no, we're not replacing one for the other.
Yep. Ryan Slater for $10.
The one challenge, and I want to say that is going on in society today, is many years ago, in probably around the time of World War II, in the silent generation that was present at that time, you had about 3% of people saying that they were in the homosexual category. So it was very few people, relatively speaking. Then in my generation, Generation X, it's about 5%. And then as the generations progress, the percentages keep getting higher. And so right now, the youngest generations, there's about 25% of kids who are in high school today who claim to be part of the LGBT. That is a social contagion, and there's really no other way to look at that. So it's a social contagion that has spread. And so if that were to keep spreading as it is at that rate, we could actually annihilate society. And so there is a serious threat right there if that contagion is to spread. However, I think that if people truly go back to the positions that they're in when they're born, and what you feel is the truth, and what you feel you should do, what you feel your mission from God is, I think it's pretty important to try to follow that. And so that's all I want to say right there. So here we go.
Says, thanks for not.
There's one really key part. So before you tune out here, there's one major part that I really find important, and it's right around here from Andrew. It's something that he compared Brandon's thesis to, which I was pretty blown away. So here we go.
Monetizing this, Jake. Super chat for the support, brother. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. We want to have this show as free-flowing as possible. Holly for $5 says, gay ad blocker. I missed that one. Made by Jim Bob for $10. Brandon, what's the meaningful difference between brotherly love and homosexuality? If you want to give a quick answer to that one.
Yeah, I just think they're two different types of love. I think the Bible talks about a variety of different kinds of love, but we'll get into that.
He's right about that, because the Bible talks about eros love, which is more of the physical, passionate love between man and woman, the romantic love, that kind of thing. And then, of course, there's agape love, which is more of the brotherly love. So there is a distinction there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, cool. All right, fellas. Well, I mean, are you guys comfortable just doing open dialogue, or would you like to do a? Yep, okay. Open dialogue.
Let's do open dialogue. Can we clarify a few terms before we dive into the debate? Just kind of get a few things clarified. I was going through, you have a multitude of videos, and I kind of went over the positions, and I just want to make sure that this is correct. Essentially, you believe that people should strive to act with compassion, empathy towards everybody and kind of all creatures which exist, right?
Yes.
Okay. That there is a struggle, an ongoing struggle for justice, and that that needs to prevail, right? Including if it needs to prevail over the law, which Jesus Christ himself did, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One's body is their own, and it's not subject to somebody else, right? And their will.
I would talk about God having some authority and ownership of that too, but yes.
Okay. freedoms for people should be respected, and you should not in any way unjustly encroach upon other people's freedoms.
Sure.
Okay. Belief should conform to one's best scientific and psychological understanding of the world, and one should take care not to distort scientific facts.
Now, as he's going down this list, if you haven't seen this video yet, think of where he's pulling this information from. So he's pulling it as a summary of Brandon's videos, but he's also pulling it from another source. See if you can guess what the source is. If you can guess what the source is, put it in the chat. I want to see if anyone guesses the source of Andrew's information right here before he gets to the end.
Yes.
Okay. And people are fallible. They make mistakes, and you should do your best to rectify those mistakes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, real quick, I just wanted to show you, I'm going to share my screen here real quick.
Now, before he does that, if you've got it, I don't see anyone in the chat has got this yet. Where do you think he's pulling this source from? So, okay. So Susan says brotherly love is philia, divine love is agape. Okay, good. Yeah, good distinction. That's one of those things with Greek words. There's a lot of meanings of the same word, and it's a little different from the English. So, excuse me. Here we go.
Jake, can you pull that up for me, please? Yeah. Can you read the title of that?
7 fundamental tenets. Yes.
The 7 fundamental tenets.
Yeah.
Notice what's just below that. So you see the goat's head. You see the pentagram. You notice that? Where do you think, if you haven't guessed it yet, where do you think this is coming from?
Now, let me scroll down briefly.
I know where this is from.
And can you read that? What does that say?
Yeah, the Satanic Temple.
Of the Satanic Temple. So essentially your doctrine and dogma, right, 100% conforms with the 7 tenets of Satanism by your own admission. Is that correct?
Yes, but if you know about the Satanic Temple, they're actually an atheistic organization that does not believe in Satan or God.
Wow. So he's showing his colors here. See, the reason why I wanted to bring this up, and this is what I thought was really important in this video, is Brandan doesn't hide the fact that he is defending the Satanic Temple. And if you believe, of course, the people who believe in the Satanic Temple, people who belong to that, on the outside, they're going to tell you, especially to bring people in, oh, no, we don't believe in Satan. We just believe in sort of that whole rebel nature, the whole rebel cause. Come on in. Come on in. Yeah, we just happen to all get together and we believe these 7 tenets that we consider very important. And they sound good on the outside. It's like devil dresses up in an angel of light. They sound good on the outside, but when you dig down deep into them, you realize where they have a selfish nature, just as the devil did. And they also have a questioning of authority kind of nature. And so that's the whole bottom line. When you go against what the tenets are of the Christian faith, and you go against what Jesus said, he said, love the Lord above all else, love your neighbors as yourself. He never said love yourself. He said love your neighbors as yourself and love the Lord above all else. Those are the really important tenets of the Christian faith. And also, of course, we've got the 10 Commandments. And we also have, of course, all of the beliefs that are built into the Beatitudes. And so we've got all kinds of virtues and beliefs that are in Christianity. Now, empathy is really important. A lot of the things that are in the Satanic Temple sound important. But again, the true colors are being masked right here. And it makes me fearful when I see a priest or pastor who's actually defending the Satanic Temple by saying what he just said. Let's keep going.
So, do we lose him?
So I agree with Susan. She said guiding principles that reflect.
I apologize for that.
Ethical.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just saying the Satanic Temple, if anybody knows, is an atheistic movement that does not believe in Satan or God. So it's an interesting thing to try to bring up, to try to align it with Satan, but there's no biblical basis that those are Satan's values, and the movement itself doesn't believe in Satan or God.
So he's, again, kind of defending Satan's values here. So what are Satan's values? Well, we know that he is the great liar. Jesus told us that. He fell from heaven. What we know from a lot of Christians, a lot of Catholic priests, a lot of other people is the whole idea that Satan basically did not appreciate the idea of the second person of the Trinity. He didn't like the idea that Jesus was going to become man because he felt as an angel that he was way above man. So he did not like the idea. He couldn't accept the idea that the divine was going to become flesh and dwell among us. Did not like that, couldn't stand that whole idea, and also didn't like the way that it was going to happen through the Virgin Mary. Didn't like that either. And so you see that sort of a thing going on. We know in Genesis 3:15, he is a conniver. He's a trickster. He wants to deceive people, just as he did in Genesis 3:15. He was able to bring down the world. But strangely enough, here we've got this Brandan Robertson defending Satan and defending the Satanic Temple, and of course also agreeing that he falls in lines with the tenets of the Satanic Temple. So here we go. I thought this was the best part of the whole debate. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I see here it's a 3-hour debate. I'm definitely not going to put you through that torture. I don't even have that kind of time, but I wanted to show you what I thought was the most killer part of the debate, which was when Andrew watched a ton of Brandan's videos, was able to sum up his tenets, puts it into a format, questions Brandan before Brandan realizes sort of where the questioning's coming from, and then brings it back, loops it back to the tenets of the Satanic Temple. Now, why is he doing this? Because he's showing you that some of the stuff that looks good on the outside, what he calls the be nice principles, actually hurt people on the inside. So just like on the outside, the Satanic Temple, according to Brandan, might look pretty good. It's like, they're just atheists. They're rebels. They definitely don't believe in Satan. They don't believe in any dark spiritual forces. They don't believe in any of that kind of stuff. But once you get on the inside, the true ugliness comes out. It's the same idea with at the Genesis at 3:15. Tempting Eve with the fruit of the tree of good and evil. It looks good on the outside. It was an apple, whatever the kind of fruit was. It looked really shiny, probably shiny, beautiful fruit. You go take a bite of it, and suddenly you get the ugliness. It's all part of Satan's nature. Here we go.
Correct. It's a secular organization, right?
Yeah.
And its stated goals are to be a subversive element to Christianity by utilizing Christian ethics against Christians. And they utilize these tenets in order to do that, which are borrowed from Christian ethics as a way to snub their nose and say, nah, we got you, Christians. And
So what he's pointing out there is very true. One of the things that Satanists do is they're always counterfeit Christian. They counterfeit Christian ideas. So for example, Satanists like to wear upside down crosses. They like to have their own form of a sacrificial a sacrifice. Basically, a lot of them are sacrificing animals. From what I understand, unfortunately, they also sacrifice human victims, which they do with the victims inside the womb, which I won't get into that so much, but it's absolutely disgusting. They're setting up their own clinics. Absolutely, again, disgusting. They're trying to get away with doing that because they're trying to cloak it under religion exemption. Okay, so they're trying to get rights to be able to do that kind of thing, which is really, again, totally disgusting. And I won't go down those paths so much, but I do want to say that they're cloaking what they're doing in is, again, a counterfeit. They also, which is really interesting, a lot of them will also go into Catholic churches and they try to smuggle out the Eucharist. And why do they do that? Well, because they want to have their own version of what Eucharistic sacrifice would be. Of course, instead of using the Eucharist in a proper way, they use it in a totally destructive and disgusting way. Sexually and everything else. So it's absolutely disgusting, some of the things they do. So they try to corrupt. They try to do exactly the opposite of what God wants you to do. So Jesus made it pretty clear what he wants us to do. He gives us all a personal mission. There's nobody on this planet who doesn't have a mission. And if you go back to the original angels, so as you know, there were angels up in heaven. God gave every single angel a mission. And a third of the angels rejected their mission and ended up being thrown down. Okay, so they were thrown down. Jesus said he saw them fall like lightning. Okay, they fell because they rejected their mission from God. And that is something that you don't want to do because, again, the gate is narrow and very few people find it. And so if you start rejecting the mission that God gives you and you don't live in alignment with God, you're going to constantly find yourself in a chaotic position. It's totally self-destructive, chaotic, and terrible. And it's not the way that you were made.
You agree with every single tenet of the Satanic doctrine, the secular subversive organization, which is there specifically to destroy Christianity. Is that not correct, sir?
That's not correct, actually. I'm good friends with a Satanist who belongs to the Satanic Temple, and his goal and their goal is not to subvert Christianity, it's to subvert conservative Christianity.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Oh my gosh. Okay, again, this is where I think is the crux of this whole debate. Andrew, I don't know if you're listening to this. I really doubt you are. I noticed that you got a ton of following, a lot of people paying attention to what you're saying. But if you happen to come upon this little teeny following video that I have here, this little video, I just wanted to say kudos to you for getting, for pulling the snake out of the hat here, because he's friends with the Satanists. It's not that he wants to subvert liberal Christians. Okay, he loves the liberal Christians. He loves those who are progressive and believe in this universalist idea that we're all going to die and everyone's going to end up making it to heaven. Probably loves those people. He loves the Unitarians. He's totally in favor of all of that. Anyone who corrupts the basic Christian tenets and the beliefs that we have, he thinks is great. That Satanist, that guy's great. He's not trying to corrupt liberal Christianity. Sorry, yes, that's referencing you, Randall Rouser, if you happen to be listening to this, which I really doubt you are, but you've been making a ton of videos now against evangelical Christians and fundamentalist Christians and conservative Christians. And you know what? Brandon would probably be your best friend. You, the Satanist, and Brandon probably would have a good time going out to lunch, maybe going to the bar together, talking about all of the conservative Christians and the ones you want to bring down. What's interesting is I work with a person also who's written a book about how to destroy, colleges, how to destroy conservative Christianity or evangelical Christianity in 3 easy steps. So you notice they're not going against and it's the same idea with Biden at one point going after the traditional Catholics. Like, why are they going after the traditional Catholics? Why did they single that group out? Why did the FBI single that group out? Because they're conservative Christians. Biden himself is a very liberal Christian. And so is Pelosi, a very liberal Christian, very liberal Christian ideas. Anyone who endorses a mother purposely, intentionally ending the life of her unborn child and actually pretending that is acceptable to Christians, that is what you would label as a very liberal Christian. And you don't want to fall under that. So here we go.
Christian nationalism, the kind that I do think that you probably represent. So
Christian nationalism did not even exist at the time of LaVeyan Satanism, wasn't even a thing. And the modern Satanic Temple, which took its lead from LaVeyan Satanism's 10 tenets for the now 7, right, also existed before there was a Christian nationalist movement at all, in order to remove the 10 Commandments from any type of public area, in order to remove any type of public prayer from schools, things like this. I suspect these are all things you support.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
This was, to me, I mean, honestly, this was the most brilliant moves of Andrew. Andrew figured this all out. This is so wonderful. I am just unbelievably pleased. What are the 10 Commandments and should they be removed? No, they should not have been removed. Love the Lord. You're to love the Lord above all else. Do not worship other gods besides the Lord. Do not create false idols. Do not do that kind of stuff. You want to honor your parents. You want to honor Sundays. Recognize Sunday as a Sabbath. You do not want to kill. You do not commit adultery. You do not steal. You do not covet your neighbor's wife. You do not covet your neighbor's goods. You do not bear false witness against your neighbors. There's all these really important commandments, and there's nothing wrong with them today. Nothing wrong at all. In fact, the inverse of the 10 Commandments is communism, but I won't go down that path. But that is the logical outcome of the particular view that is held by some liberals. Unfortunately, it can lead to communist beliefs. The idea of stealing and killing and doing anything that you can do, bearing false witness, all that.
How is that not subversive?
It is subversive. I believe Jesus is subversive.
So you're a subversive.
Yes, I agree with what you said there. Of course.
Okay, gotcha. And you agree with all of the tenets of Satanism?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Okay. So now that we have some of that clarified.
How he agrees. I mean, I'm not going to make a very long video today, but I cannot. When I listen to this, I was walking around the neighborhood and I had a brace on my knee, and I feel like I almost fell down when I heard him say that. He's totally fine with agreeing with the tenets of Satanism. Think about that. I want to say hi to Captive Desk. By the way, I haven't seen you in a while. I want to say hi to Susan. And Susan's like, yikes, what's going on? Yes, that's what I'm saying. So I listened to this. Let's listen a little bit more and see what else we got here.
Can we just move on to a couple of basic questions that I have for you?
Yeah.
You converted to Christianity when you were 22.
No, 12.
12. I'm sorry. I read here that you made your final conversion or acceptance at 22. Is that right? When you were an adult, or
No.
okay, what did I get wrong?
A few things like the log cabin Republican thing is also interesting and incorrect. But I became a Christian at the age of 12 in a fundamentalist Baptist church, and ended up in an evangelical church, then went off to Moody Bible Institute to become a pastor, and graduated there when I was 21. And
I see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I conflated the two, is you graduated there when you were 21.
Yeah.
And you now serve as a pastor in pastoral duties, correct?
Absolutely.
I have a direct question for you. You may find it offensive, but I would like to have it answered. Have you engaged in group sex with men since you've been a pastor?
No.
Never?
No.
Do you condone group sex with men?
No, I would not say that's general sexual ethic that I would endorse.
Why?
Because I believe that sex is best consensually, lovingly between usually two people. But I also, and I write about this extensively at the end of my new book, that my version of sexual ethics isn't about rules. So you're going to be hard pressed to get me to come down firmly and say something is right or wrong objectively in all situations.
Then why not engage in group sex?
Because that's not what I want to do.
Yeah, I know. But if somebody does want to do it, why wouldn't you condone it?
I think that if your values are centered on love, consent, and adult relationships, then anything can be a healthy expression and anything can be an unhealthy expression.
So So a lot of times yeah, exactly. And so Tom says this poor so-called pastor needs our prayers. Yes, he does. He does need our prayers. And so he started off as a Baptist and he went down the road. It seems like he's now in a very relativistic situation. What is relativism? It's the idea that you adjust your morals according to the culture in which you're immersed. And it's against saying that we have an objective moral standard to which we all aspire. As a Christian, I believe we do have an objective moral standard of truth, and that's Jesus. And that's what we should be aspiring to. We want to be like Jesus. We want to follow exactly what he has called us to do. And so he's called us, obviously, to do some things that are healthy and in line with going forth and creating people. So here's Susan says, a third tenet of Satanism is that one's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. Yeah, and that's unfortunately what people have used to justify the slaughter of the unborn. And I'm sure now I say this, this video will immediately be demonetized because YouTube has its certain flavor of videos that it enjoys, and saying that is not something that YouTube enjoys. So if a God makes the rules, it makes them subjective by definition. No, God is the rule. Okay, so it's not that God makes the rules. God is the rule. And we have to aspire to understand the rule, the truth. God is the truth. And he is the source of all good. He is the source of all virtue, of all love, all that kind of stuff. And so for us, what we do through our whole lives is we aspire to get as close to that as we possibly can. So it's not a moving goalpost. If God made the rules all the time and changed the rules all the time, it would be a moving goalpost. It's a goalpost that stands. And God has given us a book, and he's given us a set of commandments, and he's directed the way that we are supposed to be living. And sometimes he does give us directions in alignment with what the cultural, what is going on in the culture in order to give us rules that we can live by. So, for example, he told, when Jesus said that a marriage is between a man and a woman, but Moses allowed divorce, he said it was because in the culture of Moses, people were divorcing their wives. And so God said, okay, here's a condition where you can do divorce. But that was not exactly that's not in alignment with where God is perfect love. So, and then we have the old covenant and the new covenant. I guess that's what Captive Desk is getting into. The old covenant was in alignment with the Mosaic law, and the new covenant is in alignment with the current beliefs that we have in Christianity. In the old covenant, you weren't allowed to eat certain foods. In the new covenant, according to Acts 10, everything's okay to eat. It's all clean. And so we do have particular rules, again, in alignment with what our culture is. But those aren't like serious issues. That's not the serious issue that is God at the center of it all, which is love. So I want to say thank you, everybody, for coming in. I've spent a half hour on here. I don't like to do terribly long videos, so I'm trying to keep them a little bit shorter. I've got a video coming out in a couple of days on what is the most unforgivable sin. What is the unforgivable sin? I go through the Bible to figure out exactly what that is. So that might be something you want to watch. I'm hopefully going to be interviewing William Albrecht on my channel next Wednesday. I tried to send him a date and see if I could get that going. I've got Father John Brown coming on my channel on Groundhog Day, and we're going to talk about the book of John, because he says there's some new there's a lot of new stuff out there. There's not a loose scholarship on the authenticity and reliability of the Gospel of John, and he would like to share that with everybody in that video. So hopefully you'll come and listen to that. William Albrecht, I just received his book on transubstantiation, and so if we do chat on next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about transubstantiation and maybe some other things that would be interesting to you. I also have a video going tomorrow, and actually, to be honest, it's at 3:16, and I'm forgetting exactly what it's about. But my video tomorrow will be at 3:16. The one on Sunday, which I'm about to put up, is on unforgivable sin. That'll also be at 3:16. And so I want to say, hey to Everyday Catholic Gina. Catholic Gina and I are going to probably be running some shows. We were talking about that. She was on my channel. Don't miss that. Go back and watch her testimony. It's really good. And after you watch that testimony, she and we're going to try to maybe once a month or something like that, make a video where we talk about things that are going on. So has Randall Rouser ever debated Josh Rasmussen? Not sure Josh Rasmussen debates, but that would be good. I don't know. I don't think so. At least I haven't seen it. And I have had both of them on my channel. I've had Rasmussen on my channel and Randall Rouser. I've actually had Randall Rouser on my channel a couple times. And so one time I had him on because I was trying to figure out what exactly he believed. And I was having a hard time, even after talking to him, really nailing down what he believed, because he talks very eloquently. And it was at a level where he was saying things that could be taken in multiple ways. And so it was kind of an interesting way to try to figure that out. So thank you, everybody, for coming in. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, and do come again. And just remember, whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Thank you.